6.1, roots and radical expressions. So we're talking about roots. So roots are this little symbol here. Nth root means we don't know which one we're talking about. If the root is odd, you can have negative answers. If it is even, like this, you cannot take the root of an even negative number. Why? Because if you have something like the square root of 4, the only option you have is 2. You cannot do negative 2 because you can only take for real numbers the square root of a positive answer. So this is actually, all of this would be done on your calculator. The next slide I have here is going to show you how to do these on the calculator, but we're going to focus, and this one, we're going to focus this on the calculator because this should not take you that long as you know how to use your calculator. So for cubic root, you go to math. Right there's math. Oh my gosh, my fingernails are so bad. And then right down here, if you scroll down using that button right there, and then push enter. And then you put any cubic root you want. So the first one was 0.008. So my cubic root would be 0.2. Now one thing about your calculator, if I don't want it to push math, I could also go second and then enter to get to my entry. And then I can move over here and I can do the cubic root of negative 1, 1, 2, 3. And that would be negative 10. And then I could do the same thing, second, entry, or else you can keep on pushing math button to get to your cubic. And I'm just going to delete that. And I'm going to put in my alpha y equals to get to my fraction, and 1 over 27. So those were the answers to the first 3. Now we're going to be going over your calculator in class, but fourth root. So let's say if I want to go to fourth root. So I have math. Here with the x, that means I can choose the root. So if I want my fourth root, I can put in 4, and then I could take the fourth root of 1, and that's equal to 1. So here we're doing real roots only. Real roots only, so not imaginary. However, we could get into the fact of starting getting i's back into our answers. But one thing, you can do these in your head, and there's certain roots that you should just know. Kind of like the 8th root. First thing that I'm looking at, this is a cubic root, so that is okay to be negative. Because one number multiplied by itself 3 times can be negative. However, that means my answer will be negative. One thing I can do is look at my prime factorization. So 4 times 2, 2 times 2. So this is 2 cubed. So the cubic root of that would just be negative 2. Other thing you could do is actually just type it into your calculator and you should get negative 2 out. Square root. Again, if I'm looking at this, you know the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. However, because this is a decimal, and I moved over 2 times for my 4, you divide that by 2, so it would just be 0.2. So 0.2 squared is 0.02. Third one, this is an even root. This is a negative number. You cannot take the even root of a negative number, so that would be no solution. Now this one's a little bit different because of the fact that we should work inside out. So we first do this. So if I want to rewrite the problem, this would be like the square root of 4. And the square root of 4 is 2. So right now I want you to try those 4 problems, and we'll be going over those 4 problems tomorrow in class. So yes, that means you push pause. You should pause the video and try to do those 4 problems. So this is the part where it gets a little tricky. So if for some reason you have an odd root right here, this is your root, and if the root's odd, then we really don't care about this, and these two could cancel each other out. However, it says like in part D and G. So if I focus on this, what we just did, we got that to equal just 2. So you can't just cross the square root and root out like that, because that would be equal to negative 2 in this case. So that's saying if for some reason you have an even root, you have to put absolute values around your variables. So with the real number, it's easy because we can solve it with real number stuff, but with variables, you have to put your absolute value on it. So for this first one, I'm going to simplify the rational, or radical expression, sorry. So one thing I can always do is I can rewrite this. Now this is a square root. If there's no number, it's taking the square root of that number. So if I had x squared, square root, those two will cancel. So one thing I could do is rewrite this all. Square root of 16, and then I could rewrite square root of x squared, x squared, x squared, square root of x squared. This is me showing you a lot of work that you do not necessarily have to write down. This is one way that you can be thinking about it. Now the reason I did this is because the square root and the squared, square root and the squared will naturally just cancel each other out, leaving me with the square root of 16 is 4, and then this would be times x, times x, times x, times x, because of the fact that these will all simplify to x. So really my answer is x, 4, x to the 4th. Now if you go back to this, try to think how did I do that from the original. If my index here is 2, really all I did here was take 8 and divide by 2, and that's how I got this 4 here. Because it's saying how many groups of 2 can fit in x to the 8th. That's what I'm doing for this rationalize. Now, I don't have to put absolute values here. The reason I don't have to put absolute values here is because I started with the even, so that's where I have to be careful, but I also end with an even. Even to even, you do not have to put absolute value. So if I look at B here, if I'm looking at B, it's the same kind of thing. How many groups of 3 are in 6? How many groups of 3, because it's a cubic root, are in 6? Well, there's 2 groups of 3, so that would be like a squared. And then I think the same thing. How many groups of 3 are in 9? How many groups of 3 are in 9? And that would be b to the 3rd. You could rewrite it how I did the long way and take the cubic root of b cubed 3 times, or the cubic root of a cubed 2 times, but this would be your answer. And again, since I'm starting with an odd, I do not care about absolute values. So this right here would be my final answer. And then I'm going to do C, and then I want you to do D, E, and F by yourself. Now C is a little tricky again because I'm starting off to the 4th root. So I have to be careful with these even roots. So again, in my head I'm thinking how many groups of 4 fit into x to the 8th? Well, there's 2 groups of 4. So that'd be x squared. And I'm starting from an even to an even, I don't have to have an absolute value. Same thing here, I'm thinking how many groups of 4, because it's 4th root is in 12, well 12 divided by 4 is cubed. Now this is where you have to be careful. So this would be y cubed. But in order for this to work, because it's an even root, this number has to be positive. So I have to add those absolute values there, because I went from an even root to an odd exponent. Even to an odd, you have to have the absolute value. So I want you to do problems D, E, and F by yourself. You have a great, grand, wonderful day. Cheerio.